Well, thank you all for joining us for this morning's webinar, Uncharted Territory. My name is Charlie Taylor, and I'm one of the CE consultants at KDLA. I'm facilitating this morning's webinar. I'm just going to get you guys started, and then I'll turn everything over to Andrea Lawler. She's the director at Taylor County Public Library, and she'll be training on today's topic. A couple of things before we get started. I think I recognize just about everybody's names, but if you haven't trained with us or haven't attended any of our webinars with us before, to chat, you just use the box in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and let me know if you have any technical issues during the webinar. At the end of the presentation, you'll be able to download Andrea's slides and save them and look at them later or share them with your coworkers if you'd like. You're also going to get a certificate for attending today's webinar, and that you can use for certification renewal. And you'll also be getting a link to an online training or online survey, about today's training. So we'd appreciate your participation on that survey if you have a minute for that. So I think that's everything. I'm going to mute my end of the phone call and turn it over to Andrea. So you can take it away, Andrea.
Thank you. Good morning. I hope everybody can hear me. If you can, just I want to make sure everybody hears me clearly as well, if you don't care to chat in about that as well. My name is Andrea Lawler, and I am actually a new director. Yes, everybody can hear me. I came on as director at Taylor County in November, and I actually gave this presentation for the first time just not too many months after being a director. And actually being new is the reason that I actually did this presentation. I came in as a school teacher. I taught school for 7 years, and coming into a library setting after that, public library, of course I've been involved in the library, but when you come in and you take over as a director, it's a different ballgame. But I had a different set of eyes than my staff did because I'd been in the community realm rather than actually working in the library. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go, but that's kind of how this presentation was birthed, and that's why I actually did this presentation. So if we get started, I'm going to talk about uncharted territory, ways that we can take programs in the library to unknown places that we haven't been before, and actually reach new communities, new community members that we haven't gotten before. Part of my motivation for this, too, was when I looked at our population, we have 25,000 in Taylor County. We're only reaching about 35% of them as far as registered patrons, and that made me question who we were getting in the library and how we were reaching them. So I started thinking about this, and this quote, live the full life of the mind, exhilarated by new ideas, intoxicated by the romance of the unusual, made me think about people are attracted to the things that they don't know about. Curiosity often will bring people in, and if we're just doing normal things or the same old, we're just going to get the same crowd. So I started thinking a little bit about this and talking to my staff about it. And for those of you that are, there are going to be some times when I'm going to ask you to type some things in. And when I did this presentation before, I had everybody have a sheet of paper in front of them. So if you do, just because some of this is for you to think about in your own setting, what do you personally need to think about for your library? And if you will jot some things down as we go, it'll probably be helpful for you in the long term. So playing it safe does not always equal winning. And I know that a lot of times being comfortable and doing the things that we're used to or the things that other libraries have always done works. I always think about it, if you're on a date and you're trying to get somebody to date you or to like you in that sort of setting, which I'm married, it's been a long time, but playing it safe will not always win you the girl or the guy. Sometimes you've got to take some risk, and I think it's the same thing when we're trying to gain new patrons or more involvement. We need to look at some new insight, and change is good. Change is good in any setting. It doesn't mean you have to overhaul everything. You keep the things that work, but sometimes you can even change those a little bit into looking differently, just to attract new people. So if you build it, they will come. Just because we put on programs in a library doesn't mean that people are going to come. And just because you try new things also does not mean that people are necessarily going to show up. sometimes we step out of the box and it doesn't work. We just have to try and try again. I'll give you an example of something we're doing right now. Our library is part of the Outside the Lines initiative, which is libraries reintroduced to the public. And we have had a full week. Every day this week we've had a full lineup of programs, and at least probably 6 programs a day. These are bigger programs that we're doing. Yoga, a Dream Big session, how to get published, adoption information session, retirement session, knitting, human trafficking information session. We did a full day of college classes here in the library to let people try out what it would be like to go to college and to sit in a college class if they've never had that opportunity. We've had a fall fashion preview. We did a Republican debate viewing. And all these things we're trying are new, but just because we put them on doesn't mean anybody will come. Yesterday, for some programs we did, we had a full room. And then we had others where we had presenters come in and they had no one show up. And it's really trial and error. And what I would say is write those things down. So what did you do to publicize that event? What was new about it? Why do you think people didn't come? Sometimes it's not the program, it's the time that you make the program. And I'd say one of the most important guidelines in trying new things is keeping stats each time you do. Write down all the details about it. And just because somebody didn't come that time doesn't mean you need to abandon that. Sometimes you just need to reevaluate the situation. So with that, who, what, when, and where, and how? How do we get creative and innovative, and how do we break out of our normal expectations of what we should be doing in a library? First of all, you have to ask yourself, where is the library, and where do you do programs? Most people assume that because you are a library, you have to do all the programs inside your 4 walls, or more. But I think the answer is actually both and. You can do them inside the library and outside. Some of our most attended programs this year have actually been literally outside in our parking lot or even in the park across town. The new defining elements of a program is no longer confined to just our walls. You have to be willing to go outside your own library walls. And do any of you currently do programs that are outside of the library? Do you partner with others? Just kind of see what. I think that is a more common trend. So, good. Okay, so we're all on the same page there. Okay, so the next question is, in all things, who is your audience? And when I came in, this was something that was a little bit hard because I came into a library that was used to the same crowd coming in. We had a consistent crowd that was coming in, being involved in our brown bag book club, and that would come in and use the computers daily. But it was really hard to think about who are you overlooking in your community. And so that's one of the questions I would ask you to consider. If you say you're not overlooking anybody, I would kind of want to challenge you to say you might want to dig deeper. And right now, I mean, maybe you just want to jot it down or type it in as well. Who do you think you're overlooking in your community? Is it a specific population? Is it a specific talent? Is it a group of people that like fans? We kid around here whether it's U of L or UK fans. We ignore the U of L fans, what we say. And then is it the moms with the crying kids that you don't want to deal with? Which a lot of times children are our main attendees. But for us here, we were abandoning the, I like that, Leslie. We were abandoning high school students because nobody wanted to deal with them. Everybody thought that it was too much trouble, they wouldn't attend, and nobody was actually putting any effort into our high school students, and we had to reevaluate that. It might even be a vocation. A lot of times libraries, because we offer free services, we overlook businesses or business-type people, and So I would ask you, what is your neglected child? And I would have you write that down right now. What do you say is your neglected child in the community that you're overlooking and not giving enough attention? And that should be your starting place for where you're going to go with programs. Young married, that's a good one too. I think we have a lot of issues with not reaching young couples as well. And I said, like, a lot of people are afraid of that crazy cat lady. Those any kind of stereotyping. A lot of times we avoid. And one of my new employees actually brought up, you'll see who you're ignoring a lot of times when you see who comes to your desk and what they're checking out. If you're not doing programs that address the topics that people are coming in and asking about, then you're probably missing out on some numbers right there. And your numbers don't lie. People do. I don't know how many times that we'll tell people about private programs and they'll say, oh, that sounds great, and I'll come and attend. I'll be there. And then they don't show up. So if they're not showing up, you have to continue to ask, well, why aren't they coming? They told me that that sounds great or that's a great idea. Why are they not actually attending? Next. According to the National Center for Biotechnology Information at the U.S. National Library of Medicine, the average attention span of a human being has dropped from 12 seconds in 2000 to 8 seconds in 2013. So that's 1 second less than the attention span of a goldfish. And as a teacher, I actually took some trainings on attention span and being able to engage young people, for example. And in this training, this man had done some research on the brain and actually said that our TV programs, if you'll notice, and commercials have changed their format to address this loss of attention span, that actually every TV program has to have some kind of rising action and some kind of conflict every 5 seconds. And they said if you'll watch new programs, there'll always be something that kind of builds up and then goes back down and builds up and goes back down just to keep people's attention span. And this goes for programming too. If we have programs that are not grabbing the attention span of our audience, then we're going to be in trouble. But I would say it even goes as far as for your advertising. How are you advertising to get people into the library? If it's just one message, you're probably not going to hold their attention or get them to remember. So engaging radio, social media, handing out things in the library, multiple ways will actually engage people more. Any way you can engage people with your publicity would be great for helping getting them in as well and keeping them. So here are some questions for you to consider when thinking about gearing programs to go to outside of what you're normally doing and outside the box into uncharted territory. How many people are in your community, and how many of those actually use the library, and how many attend programming? Because some people that will come to programming actually won't even use your services, they'll just come for programs. How many does that mean that are not attending programs? How are you addressing this? Have you talked about it with your staff or with your leaders? How can you be more aware of the needs of the community? How many opportunities for ideas do you miss in one day? Like I said, when people come to the front desk, and check out items, are you paying attention to what they're checking out? What subjects they seem to like? How can you afford it? That's a big one for small libraries. When we have budgets and budgets that seem to be getting smaller, how can you afford putting on these programs? And one thing that we have done here is we have started reaching out into the community, and I've been so surprised how many people actually want to be involved, come and give their services freely and speak. And we've also started building relationships with businesses, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And how will you reach everyone, not just your regulars? So there's a lot of stuff to consider, a lot of questions to ask, and sometimes we just have to take a breath and step back for a minute and think about this and go do CPR. CPR for me in this situation was looking at the community, building partnerships, and extending my reach as far as we could. Your community is going to be your primary goal here. It's building it, stretching out into it, bringing them in. Libraries are community-based centers. Libraries are where their foundations were built upon disseminating information, giving education, and entertaining. And a lot of people don't consider that anymore. We think about, well, our community is just books. Well, you just have books out there, but actually we're so much more now, and we have to be. I read an article this week that talked about libraries now have to become their community. And if you're not becoming who your community is, then you're going to lose them. And so that's one of the most vital things, is knowing who your community is. So if your community are the young teens that like to take selfies all the time, you might consider getting a selfie stick for them to check out. You might do a passive program, the best selfie taken in the library. You have to know the quirks of your community and be willing to actually step out, even if it's something you don't like or care for, to actually try something out new. Actually, right now, what I would like you to do is to consider a couple of groups that you're not comfortable with, and what kind of program for that group would you say to yourself, I would never allow that to happen in my library. I would never have that program in my library. And I would like to see some of those responses if you don't care. What have you said in the past, or would you say, I would never do that in my library, that I've heard somebody else do? Any takers on that to respond? What would you not do in your library? Anyone? In my actual presentation I gave before, someone mentioned doing a sleepover in the library, and I had so many people that were like, I would never take that on. Yeah, a team lock-in, I've had that. And then we had another librarian that said they did do a team lock-in, and actually brought in teams they had never had in the library before, and they had a fantastic response and built relationships from that. There are also people that say they hate to read, so why would they go into a library? You have to consider reaching that community too, and how you can get them in. One big thing we're doing right now is partnering with businesses. How can you partner with businesses, and how can you convince them that your partnership is actually going to benefit them as well? We started watching our computers to see what people were coming in to use the computers for, and noticed that they were constantly doing job searches and doing resumes or filling out applications. So we started doing more and more programs about being career-oriented. We're even going to look at doing mock interviews for people who've never actually done a successful interview for a job, so they could come in and practice with real business people in the community. And that also helps groom people that actually are going to go out and work here. Businesses have actually come to us and started wanting to make suggestions for the types of programs we do, or training, or actually host their own training here because we're reaching out to them. And you'd be surprised how many people just want help with filling out an application because they don't know how. We are looking at other partnerships and grants as well, just to fulfill these needs in the community. One new thing we're doing too with our local schools, we're really looking to partner with them and new teachers. We did an actual teacher welcome back to the school year, and we gave the teachers gifts from businesses that partnered with us. I think we had a couple massage certificates, and we had a Kindle and some gift cards. And just to get them to come in the library and sit down with us, we gave them folders about our library and all the services we've offered. And as a response to that, every week since then, we've had a new teacher call to ask if we can do a program with them, if we can partner on a program with their students and their parents. And that's been wonderful. And that's added new programs that we didn't even intend to have this year. We also started an ACT prep. We do about 3 weeks out from the actual real ACT dates, we have teachers come in from the local high schools and give a tutoring session on math, English, and science. And then those students that attend those sessions can come to a free ACT practice session where we facilitate a mock ACT test using actual ACT materials. The way we get those materials is by partnering with the school, and they supply them for us, and then we supply the people to run the mock testing. And actually that's had fabulous response. We've had parents call and ask when we're going to do it again and can they go ahead and sign up. So looking at what the needs of the communities and the schools are actually created that new program for us. What connections do you have already and what connections do you have on staff? You might think about who's on your staff and who do they know. We got together and had a staff planning day and kind of said, what businesses do you have a connection with and how can we get in there and talk to them? Sometimes we only depend on our programmers when other staff members can actually jump in and help. Consider these things when you're looking for connections. Don't settle for normal ideas or normal programs. If you've had something that's always been done one way, think about if you did it the opposite, what would happen? And again, I would ask your entire staff, what have they said they would never do? And what would people say couldn't ever happen in the library? And then that could be your starting point for exiting your comfort zone and trying something new. And then you need to extend your normal reach. When your money and resources are limited, great programs that are new and innovative may mean you have to reach out to other libraries. I think a lot of times we feel like we're in competition with other libraries when we should be begging, stealing, and borrow from one another and partnering with one another. We should put away the competition and work together and share ideas. For instance, does a library near you have a 3D printer, and could they come in and do a demonstration to your patrons? Would they be interested in that sort of thing? Does your library that's in the next county have somebody that knows how to make balloon animals, and they'd come over and do that for you during a children's program, and then you could send somebody else with another talent, maybe computers, to help their library? I think the more that we partner with one another and share our talents, we will all ultimately benefit from that, and it could lead to new opportunities as well. One thing, extending your reach also means, I think, getting your staff involved to help with that. And what we've started to do here, because where we always depend on just our people that are responsible for programming, children's librarian or my young adult librarian, we started having an adopt a program sign up and letting my staff and anybody that's interested in, because we have some volunteers that come in, you just adopt a program. If we have a program scheduled or an idea for a program, we put them on a list and we let the staff and those that are interested sign up for something that they are interested in helping with. That doesn't mean they have to do it. It just means they can offer their ideas. And I think when you ask for help and when you talk to your staff or to the community, don't ever think that something is too crazy. Put it down. If you're going to make a list of ideas, put it down. And I think one important thing to think about is look at your calendars. If you go in and type in monthly days, you know how you'll have a January, February, one is breast cancer awareness, one is heart awareness, one is adoption awareness. Look at all those different ideas that are already out there for you, and you can build programs off of that. We had somebody that suggested a Black Friday program where they have programs for dads and kids because mom's outside shopping all day long and all night long for Black Friday. You've got to consider different audience. A lot of people talk about men. How do you get men in? So if you have grilling, if grilling starts to be back because of it's summertime and people are starting to get out and grill more, why not have a grilling competition for men to get them in, and then sponsor something related to that to get the guys involved. Yeah, getting people to volunteer their services is excellent. Somebody suggested March, do a session on beer making. These are some ideas that came out of the last session. In May, Derby, do a program on how to place bets. You can look at the months and get ideas from what's going on. Also involved with the Derby, knowing how to distinguish the odds on horses. In June, do swimming lessons, Derby hats, yes, swimming lessons sponsored by your library and at your local pool, partnership with other people, look at the months and what they have to offer. In October, we're looking to do some kind of storytelling, but we don't want to just do it here. We want to partner with somebody and some of the local fall festivals. So you've got to look at what each month has to offer and use what's already there, just make it look different. And what I say about that is you want people to, you don't want it so absurd that they're not going to try it, but you want it enough to be attractive for them. You want them to hear about a program and say, what? That's going on at my program or at my library? Because curiosity always brings new people in. People will come to see things that are a little bit out of the ordinary because they just can't believe that it's actually happening. You have to have something at least, even in your advertising, something that's going to bring in and spark interest. And what I will say to you, from what we found, if you're not feeling that it's a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit awkward, then you're probably not pushing the boundaries enough. That doesn't mean it has to be hard. It just means you're not pushing the boundaries. When I came in here, some of my ideas were a little bit crazy, and I think my staff thought I was a little bit crazy at first. But with all the new programming that we're doing and the boundaries we're pushing, last year we were averaging 300 people per week in the library. This year we actually did an extended count because we couldn't believe it was accurate. We are actually, our normal daily attendance is over 300 per day. So last year was 300 per week. This year we're averaging 300 per day. And that's a drastic change from last November until now. So my staff is doing a phenomenal job now that they've bought into the idea of trying new things and looking outside of the box. The community is jumping in on it as well, and we're getting a lot of fabulous feedback for trying new things because I can't tell you how many times in a day I'm stopped and said, why do you do that at the library? What are you doing at the library? I thought the library was just about books, but we're not just about books. But I will also say that we do tie in reading and books to every program we have. Whenever we have a program, no matter how outside the box it is, we pull literature that can be associated with that and we set it out. And we've been also going to, this is one way you can go out into the community. We go out to the fall festivals. We've been going out to our markets off Main and just setting up registration for cards and asking people for their opinions on ideas for programs and what we can do. And what I did with this session as well is, what do you all feel like you're doing that's already outside the box? And I would love for you all to kind of list and share those ideas if you would like to, and talk about who you partner with, because part of my session was sharing those ideas. Maybe you partner with somebody in a way that we necessarily haven't thought about yet. And I would love for you guys to take a minute and type that out. Like, who are you partnering with right now that you think is a little bit different, and what are you doing that's not normal or the traditional library program? I know that you've written about the extension service. We work quite a bit with our extension office. They were doing some similar programs, so we started talking about it together. And we still do separate programs, but a lot of times we will go to their office, and then they will come to ours, and we will partner. Do any of you all actually partner with schools right now as well? Do you have any unique partnerships with schools? Oh, that's a great idea with the dog costume party and the animal shelter. Has anybody tried, I saw you saw the Lego, and that's really popular. Have any of you tried the Minecraft clubs yet? We did that, gave it its first try this last month, and we could not hold the amount of kids that wanted to do it in one session. So we're having to reevaluate to see how we can do that. It was so popular. Do any of you have universities near you as well that you're able to partner with? Universities are a tough one. They are definitely a tough one. We are just now starting to see some breakthrough with partnering with our university here in town. It's taken a while to build that relationship and actually get them to let us come on campus and to get them to come over here because they obviously have their own library. We actually went on during their open week this year with our bookmobile to try to build some relationships there. A lot of the students didn't even know we had a public library here. So we're really starting to try to bridge that gap. I kind of wish we were in a room we could talk more about this together out loud. Kind of feel like I'm just leaving silence, but this is kind of the nature of this whole program, is to get you all to share what you're doing, and maybe we can build off of that. And I'll share with you, too, one more thing. When we were looking at getting and exploring new programming and getting outside of the box and moving to new territory in our community, we looked at our mission statement. And we actually rewrote our mission statement. And we have 4 elements in our mission statement that we now focus on building all of our programs around. And that's resources, knowledge, knowledge, strengthening, and community. And those are the things that we focus on. Each one of our programs fits in one of those categories because that's how we know we need to reach the community.
Andrea, this is Charlie.
Sure.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in and scare you. I just wanted to say that I'll be happy to go back through the chat after the class is over and kind of compile the ideas and examples that people are listing, and I'll send them out in the follow-up email after the class. So if everybody's reading through these and kind of getting overwhelmed, I'll compile them and send them out so that people don't have to be writing them down as they pop up. It might help a little.
That's great. And that's kind of like the nature of my presentation, is to get people to have the conversation. If we start sharing with one another, I think this is the way we're going to start getting into new areas and trying new ideas. That's where I've learned the most, I know. So Have any of you tried out the new maker spaces, or any of you all doing that in your library? That's great. We actually ordered 3 different rolling carts to start as makerspace stations because our library is small and we don't have a space that we can just dedicate to that. We actually did one for children, one for young adults, and one for adults. So each group has a makerspace station, a rolly cart that they can check out, and we're putting tasks on those in clipboards, and if people want to come in and use them, they're free to use them anytime that they can, anytime we're open. Athena, what's the size of your library? How big is your library? I was just curious. Charlie, are you still there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, I'm done speaking, but I want them to have enough time to talk, so I don't know how you want to, if you want to allow them to continue to discuss for a little bit longer.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. Thanks for letting me know. Sure, if you guys want to stick around and chat for a while, we can definitely do that. Keep ideas and suggestions and everything coming in and examples. I'm going to open up the pod now where you can save these slides to look at later. It popped up there in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. The directions are just above it. And then I've got Andrea's contact information on here, her phone and email, in case you have follow-up questions for her. Something pops into your head after the session's over and you want to ask her her thoughts or advice or whatever. I also have the contact information for us here at KDLA. If you have any questions for us, the certification email is the best way to reach us in CE, and a link to our Services to Libraries page, our free services, and also a link to our Twitter account where we're trying to get out information about our webinars and technology, and our youth consultant is tweeting there pretty often, so check that out. We're also going to be getting a Facebook page up and running here in the next few days to try and get more word out about our services. So please go ahead and continue to chat with each other as long as you need. As Andrea said, she's finished with her portion of the presentation, so we can stick around until you guys are finished. And when you're ready to exit, you can click the X in the top right-hand corner of the screen. But Andrea, if you want to hang on the phone and just kind of facilitate the conversation, that's totally fine. And then whenever you need to go, we can end the call. So, but it looks like there's still some good discussion going on, so we don't want to stop that.
Yeah.
But while I have everybody on here, we definitely want to thank Andrea for sharing her presentation today and her knowledge and experiences, especially from, like she said, her sort of different point of view as being a new director and coming from a different field. I know a lot of us have come to librarianship from different fields, and you kind of bring different experiences and perspectives into the field, so that's really nice to have. But that's quite a variety of programs you're doing, Andrea. I love to see all that stuff. That you just enter the volume
out that way, you know.
Yes. Yeah, we can share all those. And as I said, I will compile all these and send them out. But I love Intro to Ballroom Dancing. That's so fun. That's awesome. We'll hang out for maybe until about 10:50 and give you guys, if we need to keep going, we can do that. But we'll give you guys 8 or 9 more minutes to chat and talk about this kind of stuff, and then we'll hang it up officially. So thank you all for listening.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
A couple of things that we did do when we're talking about using traditional things. We took our story hour, our afternoon school-age kids story hour, and we made that a little bit different and more interactive rather than the kids just coming in and sitting down, because most of them after being in school don't want to do that any longer. So reinventing something you already do is, also part of that, reaching out and getting them involved. We actually increased our number by doing that because the kids didn't want to just come sit before, which is really great. And then, I totally lost the other thing I was going to say. But I love seeing your all's ideas in what you're doing too.
Yeah, it looks like everything's sort of slowing down. We got a couple people having to leave and have already left the room. So we'll go ahead and officially call an end to today's webinar. And it was great that you guys were willing to stay on and share with each other. I love that. And that's a valuable part of these webinars. It doesn't have to be just sitting and listening to someone talking. That's a great part of the chat, was that we can see what other people are doing. You have real-time opportunities to talk to each other without having to travel. So
Right.
once again, thank you to Andrea, and everybody, whenever you're ready to exit the room, just click the X in the top right-hand corner of the screen. As I said, I will email out these suggestions, and I'm also made a recording, so you can come back and watch this or share it with your staff if you'd like to. And thanks again, Andrea.
Thank you.
And you guys have a great afternoon and a great weekend as well.
Thanks, you too. Thank you all.